Today, I sit down with my dear friend, Father Norman, someone who's been a part of my life for over 15 years. I've had the privilege of training him, spending time with him, and getting to know him not just as a priest, but as a person. And what I've come to appreciate most about Norman isn't just the life he's lived, it's the way he sees people. From growing up in small-town northern New Hampshire, to serving communities across the country, to time spent at the Vatican, his journey is incredible. But what stands out even more is his humility, his compassion, and his willingness to be honest about the human side of it all. In this conversation, we talk about faith, service, relationships, and the moments that shape us, including the struggles that often go unseen. This conversation is real, it's human, and for me personally, it is a special one. I hope you enjoy episode 10. Norman, thank you for joining us today. I'm grateful for your presence and looking forward to our discussion. Amen.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Norman, I want to start with, you grew up in the 40s and 50s, and what was your childhood like? I know you grew up in northern New Hampshire. Can you talk to me about that?
Well, I would say it was a normal childhood, whatever normal was in those days. I remember having a lot of friends. We played sandlot baseball. We did a lot of sliding in the wintertime. I just enjoyed myself. I had a neighborhood that watched me.
Right.
It takes a village to bring up a child was very true. I can remember as a youngster coming home from school, both parents were at work. The lady, I lived in a 5-block tenement that we owned, and the lady upstairs would be there. And she'd say, Norman, go inside now, take your school clothes off, put your play clothes on, and go out and play. And I did it. And I would go on the next street. There was a lady who was at the head of the street who sat on her porch, and she'd watch over us. That was a way of life for me.
Right. So in such a sharp contrast to what life is like today, right? What a sense of community.
I guess I'm not in, I am in that life today. There is very little community around me,
Right.
as I'm concerned.
Right. It's a lot different.
I guess that that's the way it is for a lot of people. I don't think of that often.
Right. When did so you've talked about, what was the name of the town you grew up in? It was in northern New Hampshire, right?
I never thought Claremont was northern New Hampshire.
Well, I'm a flatlander.
and then I went someplace, Manchester, I guess, as a young priest, and you're from the north, and I'm saying north.
Right.
I was from the west, not the north.
Right. So, at what point did you start thinking about joining the clergy or your spirituality? How did that develop out of your childhood, Norman?
Well, we didn't, quote, pray together. We didn't kneel down like Catholics did and say the rosary. We got up Sunday morning and we just knew that we were going to church. There were no threats. We just went. We sat in the same pew. My father was a spiritual man, but he wasn't necessarily a showy religious man. He would come home from work and make comments about people who are doing that and just say they give Catholics, or they give us a bad name because they're throwing things at people rather than showing them. And I think that's probably one of the things that I remember most is my dad showed us how to live. He didn't throw it at us.
Hmm.
And it was always pleasant. There was no rebellion. There was not, I'm not going to go. We just went. That was,
Um, he he sounds like a humble man, very humble man.
he was very humble, and yet he was, how can I put it? He was the instigator. He would start lots of things. I was looking at pictures yesterday, and there were pictures of him that I never noticed before. And that was as a young man, he had a car. Now, this would have put him in the 20s.
Hmm.
I was born in 1940 that's to help give a relational thing. And he always had a group of guys around him. They were always dressed. They had suits on. They had brim hats, and there was always a car there, and the car evidently was his.
Hmm.
So he probably most likely came from a family of means. I never knew that.
Hmm.
I was never aware of that until I saw these pictures
Right.
and just saying, yeah, I grew up in a house grew up and we lived in a 5 tenement house. It
Right.
was my dad's tenant. Um, Not everybody on the street lived that way. There were a lot of single houses, but we had 5 families living in the house. And on the second floor were his parents.
Oh, no kidding.
I lived with his parents. I would go up and uh, sit in they had a small 3-room apartment, and uh, my grandfather would be eating, and I'd sit there and chat with him.
Hmm.
Very different from my mother's family. We didn't have that relationship there. But with my grandparents, yes, and I was looking through the pictures, and there were pictures like of one of my birthdays when I'm in a high chair, and my father's mom and dad were there behind me in the high chair. Did I say wheelchair?
You did. That's right.
Yeah, I'm a bit nervous.
That's it. You're not showing it, my friend. You are not showing it.
So that's it. What else can
Well, I think so. At what point did you decide that you wanted to pursue a life in clergy, or how did that manifest to in your childhood or your young
that
teens or?
that wasn't it. I didn't notice it, but there were times when my dad would approach me, like when I entered the friary. They were Franciscan friars that I entered, and he would bring my mom, my younger sister, and a cousin, and visit. And when they would leave, he would always wait till they left, and then he would come up and say, "You're doing this because you want to.
Hmm.
Not because your mother wants a priest, not because of me, but you're doing this because this is what you want to do." And he did that often whenever he would leave. Of course, I would see him like once or twice a year. That I was in New York State. They lived in New Hampshire. Um, that would be the rapport that I had with my dad on that. Uh,
Norman, what can I ask you a quick question? How old were you when you became a friar, and what exactly is a friar in terms of the hierarchy of stuff?
I left right after high school.
Okay, so a young man.
I was a young man, and I can remember saying priesthood is 8 years away because you have 4 years of college, 4 years of theology. And I said, I don't have to make a decision until 8 years from now. So let's give it a shot. Let's try it. Let's see what it's like. Um, and I did. And there was a time when I always sought guidance. Like I realized that things were odd there. And we had a guy who was very odd. He was my superior. And this was in the training session. And I can remember one day I was doing a headstand against the wall. And I came down from that and I hit and broke a pair of glasses. Well, I was as blind as a bat. So I needed two pairs of glasses always in case one broke, especially if you're going to school.
Right.
So I brought the pair into this guy, and he was a priest. And I said, I need a new pair of glasses. And he said, well, you got a pair on. And I said, well, I'm blind as a bat. And I'm lucky I got these. I broke the other pair. So one of my machines is going off. Okay. And I just said, I need a pair. So when these break, I won't be missing class or anything. And he said, well, we've got a vow of poverty. And on his desk, on the one side of his desk, there are about 6 pairs of glasses. and I pointed to them, and this was me. I pointed to them and I said, whose are those? And he said, they're mine. And I said, you can have 6 pairs? And I can't have 2, and I'm as blind as a bat? And then, he guffaws and he says, well, go get the damn things,
Well, Norman, that's I'm sorry. Let me just interject this real quick. You piping up and saying something under those circumstances is classic, Norman. You are not shy, so go ahead. I love that.
You mean I'm not a shy person? Oh my God. That's a revelation.
Oh man, Norman, we met about 15 years ago. So everybody listening, I'm Norman's trainer, and we connected almost right away. Probably helped that I was raised Jewish, and I didn't know you were. It's funny. I didn't even know you were an ordained Roman minister for like the first month we met. And I remember how you told me. I want to go, and I'll finish this story later, but I want to go back to the early days as a friar. What exactly is a friar again, Norman? Can you explain that? Is that like a step before a priest, or is that somebody in study?
You make a commitment to live in community.
Okay.
And the Franciscans were, at one time, you joined a monastery, and you lived in the monastery, and you didn't leave it. The Franciscans, when Francis of Assisi came, he realized that people, the regular people in those days, they were, quote, serfs, they needed people to reach out to them. So he founded a group of people who would live, quote, in a monastery, but that monastery had open doors.
Okay.
And you lived there, but you worked out in the area. So you worked among the people, and you brought God's message to them. And in those days, no one cared about these people. They were serfs.
Right.
They were owned by the Lord. And the Franciscans were seen as troublemakers because they were going in and they were teaching people, they were educating them, and people were beginning to realize that they had a voice. And so that was the beginning of the feudal system breaking down.
Right.
And that was principally because of the Franciscans.
Hmm.
And then other groups started, like Dominicans, and they had a different way of our approach, but they started up. They saw what Francis was doing in his group, and
Mm-hmm.
they started joining in the fun.
Hmm. So let's fast forward a little bit. When did you first put the collar on, become a priest, and what was that for? We've talked in the past about. I think one of your first assignments was at the Vatican, or you were a young man while you were in that area. Take us back to that time, like when you were graduating as a
I
priest.
went there. Uh, I had a sabbatical.
Okay.
So I took the sabbatical to go to live in Rome. It wasn't really to go to the Vatican, it was to go to Rome and, and to experience what Italian life was like. And they had courses and things like that. But I found that I was going to learn more by being on the streets.
Okay.
And I can remember one day I went to the guy who ran the group and I was telling him I was sick for 2 weeks and you never came. And he said, well, I thought you were out visiting out there. And that was my lifestyle.
Hmm.
I would get up in the morning and I'd go out. And I can, like, I guess I would do prep work. And I found a guide book for Rome. And someone had given it to me, and it was excellent. And I would go out. Like I can remember going out and walking in this little piazza, and that's at like a four corners. And in the middle of it was this tiny little basin with turtles on it. And the out of the turtle's mouth was coming water. And I went back and, well, it ended out sometime in the medieval ages. This apprentice fell in love with the boss's daughter, and he went and said, I want the hand of your daughter. And the owner was giving him the brush off and said, I'll give it if you can build a fountain here in the square. Well, the guy got all the apprentices in the area and told them what the story was. And overnight, and that was the condition, it's got to be done overnight. Overnight, in this little meeting places where 4 or 5 roads came together, they built a little fountain, probably about 3 feet wide. And it was 4 little turtles, and out of their mouths came water. And the next morning, the apprentice was standing there and saying, here is the fountain. And so the father of the girl knew he gave his word, and he said, she's yours.
Hmm.
Uh,
What a
and
cool
unless
story.
you had that guidebook, you probably would walk by this thing and say, I wonder what that's all about.
Well, I'll tell you what, the first thing I think about, first of all, incredible story, but how much this man loved this woman, that he wanted to marry, and the courage he showed to pull everybody together and just whip that sucker right up, because I would have fallen apart. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think I could have done something like that. So I'd
Yeah.
love to hear that stuff.
And that's the amazing part of the story, that he could get all the apprentices to come
Absolutely.
help him spend their night doing this. And there had to be a lot of work doing it.
Right.
And the relationship he had with them.
Yeah, that's great.
I think that's what impressed me. That has been my life. Look at our relationship. my memory is going like crazy, meaning it's disappearing, but that I had all these years with you in the exercise, the physical work. The guy before you, I don't even remember him.
Mm.
And
We
you're the one that told me that I had a good relationship with him.
the
Uh, it's
we
important for me.
It is. Relationships are everything, and I always say helping others is what it's all about, right? We're here to help each other,
Yeah.
and that's based on love and a lot of things. I remember when we first met, Norman. It was about 15 years ago, and they needed a. I don't think there were any trainers at the gym you were at, but they sent me in to be your trainer, and we were training together for about a month, and in that we'd probably training twice a week. And in that time, I was probably throwing around a few F-bombs here and there. Um, and I must have been after an F-bomb. You were in the middle of a set, and in typical Norman fashion, you said, "Have I told you I'm an ordained Roman minister?" And my jaw dropped, and I thought about it for a second. I said, "You're a Catholic priest?" And you said, "Yes, that's right. I F and M." So
Well,
you threw the F-bomb right back at me. But that was our connection. I'm a Jewish kid that went to a Catholic high school, and we connected on a lot of different levels, but I think spiritually we connected too, which was really cool.
see, and the type of ministry that I had was very different from most other priests because excuse me a minute. What I did was I became a hospital chaplain. And when I was in Concord, New Hampshire, uh, I met a Jewish doctor who really influenced my life because he was a neurosurgeon and he was always dealing with sort of crises events, and he hooked on to me, and he said he did this, but I'm going to say he said it. He got me to see every one of his patients before he had underwent surgery.
Wow.
And it was important for him that that happened, but he also knew that I wouldn't be trying to stuff religion down people's throats.
Right.
He taught me how to listen to people. And most of my ministry was doing that, listening to others and trying to find out where they're at, and then seeing how I can lead them. Here's a good example. I can remember visiting this one man in the hospital, and he was dying, and he said, "I don't want any prayers." And he said, "If you're going to visit me, I just want you to be there." And I said, "I will do that." And he said, "You promise me there'll be no prayers when I go." And I said, "If you don't want that, that's what you'll get. No prayers. I want to be there for you in the way you want me to be there." And I can remember one night the family calling me, and I went there, and I there were like six couples, uh, and I'm looking around, and I don't see anybody that matches his age. And I said, "Where's your mother?" And they said, "Well, we want to save her this pain."
Mm.
And I said, "Well, let me ask you a question. If each of you were in your dad's place, would you want the rest not to invite your spouse to be with you to save her pain?"
Mm.
And they stopped everything, and they had a discussion, and then they said, "Okay, we're going to stop. He's going to go get Mom,
Mm.
and we'll gather when Mom gets here."
That's
And I
great.
remember talking with one of them during the break, and I said, "Your dad doesn't want prayers. I'm not going to give him any because he doesn't want them." And I said, "I'm here to do what he wants, and that is his presence, our presence." And the kid said, "That's what we want to do."
That's a
And the
great
guy
story.
eventually died, but the wife was there and all the kids were there. And one of the things I remember was the young man that I was talking to said, "We're trying to create a circle of love where my dad will be safe." And I said, "He is safe."
That's
That
great.
was an incredible moment.
Norman, did the wife say anything to you afterwards or anything?
I don't remember
Oh,
anything.
okay.
I
Wonder if
don't
she
remember
if she
any.
was grateful for that, because that to be there is a blessing, right?
Oh, sure. I would imagine it would be.
You know. So let's talk about your life in the United States. How many you've kind of crisscrossed across the United States, haven't you? A little bit, Norman. Talk about some of the places you've been and share some of that with us.
Well, you mentioned, hold on. We mentioned this earlier. I'm an alcoholic. I've been one for years. And as a young man, I saw that in New Hampshire, that my future was I'm going to be sent to a small parish. I'm going to live alone. And I saw a lot of opportunities to be very active alcoholically. And I go ahead.
Norman, how old were you when you realized you were drinking? Like, around what age did you start doing this?
Oh God.
Like a really like right out of the gate, whatever, right after graduated, I guess, what do they call it?
No, it would have been probably 10 years out.
Okay, okay,
Um, and knowing that I would be living alone, and that was not necessarily a healthy thing.
no,
Uh, and so I approached the bishop and told him I wanted to go in for learning how to be a counselor. And this bishop gave the okay. And so I went into a program called CPE, Clinical Pastoral Education. I did 2 solid years of what do you call it, in-house training.
hmm
I went to a hospital. There was a supervisor there, and I spent 2 years there. And it was training all the time and with a supervisor and just learning how to do it. And for a Roman priest, that would have been difficult because the training is that you become a listener.
right.
You're not there to direct, but you're there to listen to the person's needs and to respond to it. So I did that. And I got certified nationally.
hmm
And I went out. The bishop gave me the approval to leave the diocese. So I went to California. And I went down to New Jersey first, and I worked there, and that was a trying thing because they were looking for someone who was going to make big changes, and there was a staff of about 10 people there, and they
hmm
were all set in the Roman way of going out, and I had to change the focus of everything. And I had an excellent supervisor, a VP, a vice president, and she was a fabulous person. And I can remember coming back one day. I went away on vacation, and this was after a couple of years with her. and she was filling me in on what was happening, and I got up to go. I thought she was finished, and she said, "No, I'm not finished yet." And this was in the back of my head, and I turned around and I said, "You're going to fire me."
Hmm.
And she said, "I want you to sit down right now and listen to what I am saying. It is very important." And so I sat down and she said, "I'm not going to fire you, but I'm going to tell you that your position no longer exists here." And
Hmm.
I sat there, and they couldn't fire me because of her reports on me. Her reports were fabulous.
That's awesome.
And the head of the group of the hospital wanted me out. But because of her reports, they had to eliminate my position. That's how good she was with me. And so the person wanted me out so badly. This was the president of the group. She wanted me out so badly that she eliminated the position.
Hmm.
And I just sat there. I was awed. And so I no longer had a job, but I had a VP who said, "You can go any place."
How
And
long were you there? How long were you there, Norman? You were there for a while, weren't you?
probably 3, 4 years.
Okay.
And I had been hired for that position by the nun, and she was doing horrible things. Like she would call you in the morning. You would come in and you would be met at the door by security, and security would take you to your desk and tell you, "You take your things, and then we're going to the president," and the president would say, "You're fired,
Hmm.
and
All
you're
that drama.
not welcomed here." And you and I probably would have talked the day before, in which you told me that you finally found a house that you loved and you were going to buy it.
Hmm.
And security would bring you right to the door and tell you you're not welcome to be here. She called it right sizing. And I got her anger because I would go to board meetings and I would say, "You're not right sizing, you're downsizing. You're firing people,
Hmm.
people who were not aware that they would be fired." And so she wanted me out, and my VP always sat beside me, and she'd kick me, uh, as if to say, "Norman, shut your mouth."
She like kicked you under the table.
Oh yeah, yeah, so.
That's
But
funny.
it was so sad because I would be sitting on the curb with these people who had no inkling that they were going
Right.
to lose their job. And I would be the one that would try to pick up the pieces, try to get them to stand up again, and to go
Hmm.
out there and realize that there was nothing wrong with them. It was the system that was wrong.
Right.
And I don't know how I succeeded.
You know, you've talked about that, about how they pick you up and just move you out of areas. So all those relationships that you've forged and developed for those 3, 4, 5 years, they just cut the cord, and then you go somewhere else, right? I mean, essentially, you're not really allowed to keep relationships with these people, are you?
No, and that was part of the training in the priesthood was, you're going parish to parish, and you leave the parish, you leave it. And that was always there. When I would leave a place, I would leave it and leave everything behind.
To me, that must have been tough, right? Because I get close to people. I know you get close to people, and to not be able to stay in contact with them as much as you would like, that must have had its challenges, Norman, or you must have struggled with that a little.
It did, and it does now. You know, I'm what, 85. I live in a nursing home, and I don't have anybody out there. I don't have any family. My family's gone. Um, so you learn to live
Right.
alone.
Which is a good thing too, right? Being present and being self-aware in those moments. And how often have you and I talked about just sitting in silence and how good that feels. But you know, we're human and we need relationships. And that always kind of stuck with me. And I could see how becoming an alcoholic happens because you're isolated. You're giving, but then you're alone, right? You've given everything you've got.
At the end of the day, you go to the house and you're alone. You know, I used to. Well, the last place where I was in the parish was in California, and I can remember I had someone come up to me one day, and he said, "Hey, Father, would you like to go to an AA meeting with me?" And I said, "No, I've been to AA meetings. I don't need AA." Uh, and I did. Uh,
Mm.
I would go out. I'd go to your house. I had trained myself that I would have a drink with you at dinner, and that would be it. But I knew that when I went back home to the rectory, I had a nice bottle of gin waiting for me. And I was in places where I could get away with it.
Norman, how
I would drink the bottle. I wake up the next morning with a headache, and if the bottle was finished, first thing I would do is say, first thing on the agenda is you go out and you get a new bottle of gin.
Hmm.
And I was addicted to the gin. I lived in Northern California. I would go down to the where is the valley where all the wineries were.
Oh yeah. Napa.
And I had closets full of bottles of wine,
Hmm.
but my drink was the gin, you know. And then the funny thing is the bishop, the territory was like a shoestring. It was 6 hours from bottom to top. Well, I lived at the top, the bishop lived at the bottom, and he would come up once a month and spend a week up there. And I was able to take care of myself. And I remember one day he was packing his car, and I had no intentions of doing this. It was a moment of the spirit. And as he was packing the car, I went out and I said, "Bishop, I've got a problem." And he said, "What is it, Norman?" And I said, "I am an alcoholic." And he said, "Oh, well, we'll take care of it." And I knew he wasn't listening. And I said, "You're not listening. I'm an alcoholic. I have a problem." And that made him stop. And I'm thinking of this now. This showed the relationship we had. He stopped and he said, "Okay, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I need to go away." And he said, "Okay." And usually a bishop would say, "You're going, and you're going today." And he said, "Well, I got to find someone to replace you. Can you wait?" And I said, "Yes, I can do that." and I can try to behave. But I said, there's been nothing. No, there's only one person that came out and said, let's go to a meeting. I said, no one's talked about it. So he said, okay, I would recommend you go to, and I can't remember the place. It was in northern Michigan. And he said, it's there for priests. I would recommend you go there. And I said, I'm open to that. He said, let me find a person to replace you, and then you go. And I said, no problem.
And that was about,
And that's what happened.
and that
Go
that was
ahead.
about, I'm sorry, that was about 25 years ago, right? Right around 2000, Norman? I think you said it's been about 25,
Well,
26 years now.
memory is not that good in that respect, but yeah, it would have been
Yeah.
because I went in. It was 1999 roughly that I left the center,
Okay.
and so it would have been 1998 that I went there, and it
Hmm.
was it was probably the best thing for me. And
Absolutely.
then what, 25 years, 26 years, and I haven't had a drink, and I haven't had the urge. That was a blessing. When I left the center, I never had an urge to drink.
Hmm.
And that was, for me, was a blessing.
Absolutely. That was a big gift. And we talk about it. If you didn't stop drinking, you wouldn't be here. I might not have met you. Um, no question that sobriety, and then you picking up exercise habits too, has played a major part in how you are today. I mean, you still drive. God bless us all, but you do still drive.
Yeah,
So
yes.
you're really with it, is what I'm saying. And these last 25 to 30 years have been a blessing for sure.
Is that it?
No, I want to. So after you got out of the rehab, did you get a newest? Where did they send you after that? Did you go back to the same?
Well, after rehab, I was in California,
Right.
and the person who replaced me was not a nice person. Like, I had a dog, and he gave the dog away.
Mm.
And I just decided the bishop in New Hampshire was very good to me. He could have really clobbered me, and he didn't. And so I said, I'm going to go back to New Hampshire. And I retired at that time. And I came back and sort of retired. Just said, that's it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna hang up my shoes, and I'll live as a retired priest. And I came back to New Hampshire, and I what I did was I worked for a group of people who were it was a family that worked in the islands, principally Haiti. And I would go out. I would fly weekends away and fly to different parishes. And they used me to raise money and awareness for the work that was going on in
Mm-hmm.
Haiti and the islands. So I would go and replace a priest, and this would allow him to go home or go someplace for the weekend. And I would go and preach and talk about the need for the people in the islands to get help.
Mm.
And so I did that for a couple of years. And
That's pretty cool, huh, Norman? So you said Haiti? What islands were they?
the Caribbean islands.
Okay, Haiti. Yep.
Yeah.
That must have been an incredible experience, though, huh?
It was a wonderful experience because I got to go out every weekend, and I was still young enough to not to mind that, and I would fly into a parish, and they would make all the arrangements, the group, food for the poor,
Mm-hmm.
and I would fly to a parish, and people would pick me up, and I would be there for the weekend. I would do the services, preach for the food for the poor, and I would fly back to New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that for several years, more than several years. I just don't remember how many years.
Well, to that point, I think when we started training together, you were still, I don't think you were going to Haiti at that time. At least I don't remember it, which I think I would. You were going to flying out to other parts of the country for the weekend to fill in for traveling priests
It's for the food for the poor.
Yep. Okay. So you were still doing that. And then you started training with me about 15 years ago. And here we are today, Norman. How cool is that, right? I think it's awesome.
Oh,
It's awesome. And you took about a 2 or 3 year break. I'd say about a 2 year break. And we've been back at it now for about, I would say, 6 months. How do you feel? And how do you feel now versus when or before you started back up? I know you've had some major strength improvements and functionality as well, but how do you feel?
I feel pretty good. When I retired and moved back, I bought a place. I was earning enough money that I bought a small condominium next to where you live, and I I reached a point where I realized that I had 3 or 4 health events that I needed to take care of. And so I said, I've got to sell the place and I need to find a place that I can go and let people take care of me. And I found this place, which is the Ward Center. And I live in a very nice unit. This building was built for priests. I have 460 square feet to myself, and I have a wonderful staff and nursing and all the other things that take care of me. And I'm still able to come and go on my own.
Right.
And, but I do need people to look over me and make sure that I'm doing the things that I need to do. And I presently have a presence of mind that I can do that.
Right.
But I do need nursing.
Right.
And they take care of me. And I think my lifestyle has been such that I'm able to let that happen.
Right.
It was a tough decision to give up my independence, to be able to say, I can't live alone anymore, and to be able to sell the place. And that was a difficult move.
Right.
And to move in here and to let others take care of me. That's not an easy choice to make. That's not easy at all.
I can only imagine, because giving up your independence really is everything. But you know what? You were prepared for it. You're a very present person. You mapped out the future, and truthfully, this is the best with the situation you could have possibly been in where you're at. You've got 24-hour care. You can come and go as you please. You've got your own unit with your own kitchenette, your own bedroom, so you can find peace in there. And when you want to mingle with some other people, you can go do it. And I think it's been a great move. And truthfully, Norman, I haven't seen any cognitive decline in you at all. You're still sharp as a razor, although you might be a little bit more ornery these days, but You you certainly you're in a great position in life, and you've earned everything you've got right now, buddy.
I think so. And I think it's because of my life. It's the life
Absolutely.
that I've lived that I've learned how to do this. Uh, and it started way back in childhood. I can remember. Uh, I I can remember having a pair of skates, and this is primary grade level. And my dad couldn't take me skating. He'd come home from work, and that would be it. He taught me that I could take my skates. The park was like a city block away, and I could go down there. There was someone that would put my skates on for me.
Hmm.
And he would get one of the high school kids, take Simoneau out for a ride on the ice. And then I'd come back in, and this man, Tony Damaris, Joe Damaris, and he would take my skates off and say, "Have a good night." And I could go back home. My dad would be sitting in the chair. How was it? I had a good time. This is a primary school kid, so
Yep.
yeah, that was my lifestyle. It still is my lifestyle.
Yeah, you have a lot of you've always had a lot of positive energy, and I think people gravitate towards that. Obviously, right? You want to be around high vibrating people, right? You
Yeah.
do. And,
Yeah.
and even though you've got your barbs that you like to fire out, you have a heart of gold, my friend. So that's for sure.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Are you ready for a little lightning round? Some questions with some silly
Sure,
questions. All
sure.
right. I think I might know the answer to this question, Norman. But what is your favorite sandwich?
I know what it is, and I'm going to have one, but I can't tell you because it won't come out of my brain.
It's
But
it's a Reuben.
it's a Reuben, and we're going to have, what is it?
Oh, the onion rings are called tumbleweeds at this restaurant. It's we're
Humble.
going. Yeah,
Potatoes, fried
you're
potatoes, but the strips of them. Yes.
yeah, we're looking forward to that meal. Okay, next question. If you didn't become a priest, what do you think your career might have been?
I think I would do the type of work I'm doing now. I would have been a counselor.
Okay, great answer. Right, helping others.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Do you have a favorite saint? And if you do, why?
I would say I haven't thought of it, but now that I'm thinking of it, I would say Francis of Assisi because his group broke up the feudal system.
Hmm.
There were lords and there were serfs, and he chose to go and work with the serfs and help them to stand up and for them to free themselves. And that's what I've always was encouraged to people to do. Free yourself from what you're going through.
Awesome. Okay. What prayer has meant the most to you over the years, if there is one? A
What?
prayer that a prayer that has meant the most to you over the years. So maybe a go-to prayer that
There's no magic prayer. It's
no.
just going into your heart and talking to God as a person.
Okay. Okay. Next one. What makes a human soul beautiful?
Caring for others.
Amen.
I
Amen, brother. Amen, brother. Okay. Sunrise or sunset?
I can't choose.
You like them both.
I like them both.
All right. That's an answer. That's great. Okay. If you could have dinner with anyone from any century, who would it be and why? There's a lot of
Well,
good ones. I mean,
yeah.
Jesus, right? That's what the first thing that popped
Oh,
to my mind.
no,
But
I wouldn't even think of that because the outlook is that God comes to you through people, and if you're open to that, everybody's going to present an aspect of God to you.
hmm,
So be open that God is coming to you, not in the evolving sun, but through this person. If this person opens themselves up to God's love, you're going to meet God that way.
okay. What do we got here? Best decision you ever made. Sunset. All right. What are your thoughts on compassion, forgiveness, and purpose? We're just getting toward the end of some stuff here.
Yeah,
I think
we should all. I have a cup, and it has "Be nice" written on it. So when you pick it up, and there are times when it's very difficult to be nice to people.
right.
You know, I've been to a therapist most of my adult life because I know that I'm not altogether perfect. But there are a lot of people that don't see themselves that way. They think they're perfect.
Right.
And you have to deal with the mess. And it's difficult to be nice to someone who is not nice. But you
No.
have to be nice to them.
It,
Or you should want to be nice, not have to be. You should want to be nice to them because they deserve that.
right. Right. And, we talk about this often, Norman. I think it goes back to self-awareness, right? That's where we start. How do we become better? And there are people out there that don't want to become better.
Yeah.
Or not. I'll take that back. I don't think they're aware of it. And that goes back to self-awareness. Yeah. I think
They're not aware of their oddities.
right.
And you are experiencing them, and you can either encourage them or you can sock them with it. And socking them doesn't work, but you help move them on beyond where they are. And that's not an easy chore. And you get tired of it.
It does drain you. It does. It does drain you. I'm a very present person. I let go of things very quickly. I don't let things attach to me, or I don't attach to things, or I try not to. And I think that has served me well over the years. And that helps with letting go of stuff. Because you're right, there are people, or there are times you're around negative energy. And you just can't attach to it. Nothing's personal. Let it go. Keep moving forward. And that's a lesson. That's a lesson for sure.
And it's a difficult one.
I think, but that's part of the reason we're here, right?
Yeah.
Is to ascend and be better than when we got here. I know I'm continuing to ascend, and I'm loving every minute of it, Norman. And it's a beautiful thing, right?
I love where I'm at right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I care for myself. And it's been a lot of work, to get into therapy. I can remember as a younger man, he's a nut. He sees a therapist, and I never hid that. I let people know that I'm in therapy, and I'll keep it up.
Absolutely. Yeah. Talking about things is our superpower, right?
Yeah.
And I think when talking about vulnerability is actually strength, and it might be the most optimal form of strength, right? You're strong enough to show people where your weaknesses are, and that's a sign of strength. Not a lot of people have, Norman.
Yes, and you make yourself very vulnerable.
You do. You do.
Yeah.
Oh, that was awesome. Any final thoughts? Any final words for our listeners and your friends too?
No, I'm looking at the clock and I'm saying, oh, the hour is almost over.
It hasn't been complete torture today. Come on. Oh man, Norman, thanks for joining us today. Don't hang up yet. We're going to talk after we go off air.
Okay.
I just want to thank you for joining us today. This was a great conversation.
Well, thank you for having me.
And we are going to have you back on the studio and just continue this topic because we just scratched the surface of stuff we talk about, and I think it'll be valuable. There'll be valuable discussions for people to hear for sure. So thank you for joining me, Norman.
Okay. Thank you for having me, and thank you out there who are looking at this.
Absolutely. And to everybody listening, watching on YouTube, thanks for joining us today. And always remember to hit subscribe, like, comment, share with friends and family. We're building a community here based upon compassion, empathy, love, and laughter. Till next time on the studio.
Amen, brother.